here's my question: if you're a diehard fanboy, we're diehard fanboys. What is it like being able to work on the X-Men animated series, to tell Stan Lee no, to have to write about these characters objectively? How did you find it difficult switching hats from being a fan to being a professional? I couldn't do it.
I, in the beginning of my career, I was a kid in the candy store. I couldn't believe I was getting paid to draw these characters.
Yeah.
Now that would have been like I got into Marvel about 81. So I was just, I mean, Stan was like 2 doors from my office. It was right down. I could talk to him every day, which I did.
Wait, did you just go into his office and you're like, "What's up, Stan?" Like,
I could do that sometimes, yeah, but I tried to make do it with a reason.
Yeah.
And how was he like as a coworker, being that close? How was he like?
I tell people, because there's so many different stories. Stan think about 3 characters. Think about Peter Parker, Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson. And when he comes into work, well, let me put it another way. If you're talking to him and he's talking like I'm talking right now, you're getting Peter Parker. Yeah. Just regular guy talking about normal stuff. Then there's times when he becomes Spider-Man, where literally he was jumping on tables. This little guy jumping on tables. This is how you put Spider-Man. He has to have the fingers like this, and that's how he attaches to the wall. And I'm 25 years old watching this guy jump on tables and stuff. I mean, he was Spider-Man. And the third person, J. Jonah Jameson, he would, if he came to work and he looked grouchy for whatever reason, you avoided him. Say, okay, the J. Jonah Jameson is in. Let's not bother him today until you can see Peter Parker come out. So he was all 3 of those characters, and it's what I tell people. That's why he could write Spider-Man so well, because all 3 characters were in his head. They were parts of him.
They were his personalities coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
So jumping back to the X-Men show specifically, one of the most iconic pieces of the show is certainly the opening titles, which you played a huge hand in developing. Of course, I love the version we got. Everybody loves the version we got, but there's a first draft storyboard in the Leewald's book, which you drew, that sort of skips over the character intros. It jumps right into the action. It has Magneto and Mojo and Dark Phoenix and Sinister. I love it. Like, seeing that storyboard, I was like, this is epic. But why do you think that version was rejected? And would you have preferred it to what we got?
No, because, well, see, what it was when I had the job of drawing the opening storyboards. And so I just let my fanboy go crazy. I just started drawing like crazy, and trying to weave it together into a visual narrative. But I knew I was overdrawing. I didn't care. I just kept drawing, and I figured, okay, I'll draw out everything that's in my head, and then we'll just naturally just cut it back. That's pretty much what happens in our business all the time.
Yeah.
And so I figured it's easier to have too much and cut it down than have not enough and you got to make up new stuff.
Right.
And so that's what I came from. I just kind of drew like crazy.
Those boards were beautiful. I loved that idea as a fanboy, as an existing fanboy. I loved that idea. So once the decision was made to have those opening titles be more lead character focused, did you actually get to design the character specific logos to introduce them?
Yep. Actually, the story behind that is that this is back when technology was fax machines, okay?
Yeah.
And we didn't have logos. And so we called Marvel New York and say, okay, we need logos for these characters. And I think 3 or 4 of them, they had no logos. And so I had to design those logos on the computer behind me. Not that one, but one like that a long time ago. I had to design logos and make them large enough so that we could ship it overseas, and then they could put it into the show.
Oh,
but I designed them myself.
Awesome. They look great. They look great. I love all of them.
Yeah, well, Jubilee, Jean Grey, Professor X wouldn't have had their own logos. I don't know if Professor X, but definitely Jean and Jubilee wouldn't have had him.
Yeah, and we asked them for those. You know, we wanted to use all the official logos, and so we got some through the fax machines, and then we had to take them and clean them up because there were all these dots on it. So we had to have an artist go through and clean it up. But they literally had nothing for Rogue, nothing for Jean Grey. You know, it's like, and I got a deadline. It's like I gotta get it in production. You know, so it's like necessity made me draw it. I had no choice.
Well,
they turned out epic.
Yeah, they were beautiful. And speaking of epic and drawing, I think the Jim Lee costumes were brand new at the time, obviously, and they were just so iconic. You made them iconic, and why do you think they were the right fit for the show, in retrospect?
In retrospect, we all believed, the three of us believed that we should go at what was current at the time. And so we took the Jim Lee drawings, but we had to simplify it for animation. So we kind of kept his style, but we had to make it animation friendly. And so the other, but there's another story behind that, in that about that time is when Jim Lee and the rest of them left Marvel to go start Image.
Yeah.
And Marvel's, we're in production, and out of nowhere, Marvel says, well, you can't use those Jim Lee designs. We're going, what? We're in production. And so they didn't want to give him any additional publicity. And it really got really serious. And so I think it was Will said, okay, you don't want Jim Lee's design? I'll give you something else. And so he took the whole lineup and made it like Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
And said, here.
Yeah, that's actually something the Leewalds mentioned to us. And what did you get to see those? What did they look like? How bad were they?
They were bad. I think they were bad. It was just imagine Scooby-Doo, Cyclops, Scooby-Doo, the whole 9 yards, and we freaked them out, and we did that on purpose. And then they said, fine, they backed off.
Yeah,
because we said, okay, this is what it's going to look like. And we have no time left. If you're going to change it, we got to do it now.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of pressure on them to make them back off.
Well, Cyclops is supposed to be tall and thin, so maybe Shaggy isn't such a terrible reference for him.
And you got Daphne, who's a redhead, right there.
Yes,
it's right there. It's right there. Maybe it wasn't so bad. No. So aside from the Jim Lee outfits, of course, there's Morph in the pilot episodes. It's kind of clear that his head, we know he's in an adaptation of the Changeling, so his head is clearly, a helmetless Changeling from the Marvel Handbook, but who decided to put him in like the standard X-Men uniform versus like that awesome purple headpiece he's known for?
You mean why?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we always figured that was the best choice for him, was to put him in an X-Men outfit.
Yeah.
And the backstory behind Morph, I don't know if the Leewalds told you, but in the original books, it was Thunderbird, I think, who gets killed and that would have been Thunderbird instead of Morph in the show.
Yeah.
But we said, wait a minute. We're going to introduce the first superhero Native American and kill him in the first episode.
Not a great look.
Not a good idea. No, not a good idea. And so we went back, and that's when we found, Changeling. And then we used his image, but calling him Morph. And that's his origin, where he came from.
Yeah. I love Morph, and I think that it was definitely the right decision not to have it be Thunderbird. Of course, we did wind up seeing that design in the opening credits.
Yes.
I do have one more little design question here, because this question has sort of divided the X-Men fandom since 1992. Storm's costume on the show. Is it super shiny black, or is it white with shadows?
It is, the way I always saw it was, it's shiny. The way I saw it.
Yeah.
We were there's I've always, like when we did the let me back up. When we did the Pride of the X-Men, we used the black costume.
Yeah.
But we had production problems that overseas that I had to call retakes on. Whereas when you get the character in a black costume, she in a night sky, she disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to add like a glow or something around her so that you could see her against the background. So fast forward when we did the other series, I gave her the white costume because it works great against a dark sky.
Yeah.
And I always thought the mark we put here was supposed to be like a shine, a reflection shine. So it was I guess you could say it's more of the shine.
Yeah.
How did you describe it?
So I think as it was like Jim Lee has said that when he originally designed it, it was black, and anything white on it was just like a highlight from the light. It was like patent leather black. And then so I always, prior to him saying that, I always saw it as white. My action figure of it as a kid was white. I think it looks better in white.
Well, Storm looks so
I was
regal.
just kind of curious. There's two camps. It's black or it's white, and I was curious from the man who brought it to the screen from your perspective, what color it was.
But to me, it's white.
It's white. It looks better that way on all the action figures and all the statues. It's white. I totally agree with you.
And the Lee Walds said white as well, and Storm just looks so regal in white.
Yeah, it works.
It goes great right there.
And for me, for production wise, it works great when she's in the sky doing her thing. She pops against the background. That was my main concern sometimes with her. That's why I went with the white costume instead of the other color.
And everybody else is so brightly colored. Having Storm randomly in a black costume might not have made the most sense, anyways.
Yeah.
So good. Glad to have an answer to that.
Hope it clears up something.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So jumping forward a little bit, of all the guest characters, and there were many, and there were many great ones on the show, was there anyone you really wanted that you had to fight to have included as the resident fanboy of the crew?
Okay, I remember trying to put a cameo Spider-Man into the show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And I put him into like a cameo in a shot, and it got shot down. I said I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Why?
And I think in retrospect, I think now it probably had to do with contracts, because Marvel didn't want to give ownership of certain characters to Saban, which was the production company.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But it's a cameo. He's not part of the show. But anyway,
we got him shooting the web sling in Phoenix, the Phoenix Saga.
Yeah, I snuck him in.
But wait, so how could the X-Men animated, was that the reason why the X-Men animated team was able to go to Spider-Man? Because it was Saban going to you guys, or to Marvel, or
they wrote contracts. They got it an agreement so that the contracts that they wrote were written in such a way that Saban didn't he didn't possess those characters. So I guess once that happened, that could occur, because that was an official, peer-to-peer group. We agreed to do this. But my thing was just a cameo, and all my cameos, I never asked permission. I just did it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, because one such cameo in the series earlier, I think it was season 2, was my girl Dazzler, who was hanging out in the Mojoverse with Longshot. But then when we got her, when she officially debuted later in Dark Phoenix a year or two later, she was colored totally different. Why was that?
I don't have a clue right now.
Dazzler's not top of mind.
No. It's the fact that there's in between from when the first time we used it and the second. In almost all cases, I never changed. Whatever colors were used before, that's what we use. I don't know why that character was modified, because to me it should have been the same colors as before.
Yeah.
So
So to you, that is 100% Dazzler in the Mojoverse. That is her.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So
Perfect.
so you drafted her character model for that background episode, and then it was used again, that model, for Dark Phoenix. And for whatever reason, the colors were just off. But did you only have to
Correct.
draft her then, and then she was just reused later?
Yeah, basically back then we didn't have a budget. We were like a garage band. We didn't have a lot of money to work with. So like when in the Mojo universe, we needed to design some characters to be with Mojo.
Yeah.
So I told Lisette, okay, make this Dazzler because I can use her later on in another show.
Yeah.
And so that was my justification, was to do stuff in one show that I could repurpose someplace else.
Yeah.
And so that's where that came from. It's like I didn't have a lot of money to work with, and we were on like this kind of a timetable.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, Dazzler aside, I definitely do have to give you props for some of those background character choices. I mean, you wound up being bringing, A-listers like Black Panther and Deadpool to life for the very first time, and that's definitely got to be like some sort of nerd badge of honor. Did you have just like any sort of feeling about them, or you just worked in the characters you liked?
It's more of the latter. I worked in the characters I liked, and also it's kind of like when when I'm going through the storyboards, it's about, I had to go through 300 pages of artwork every week, and I had to correct, like if someone didn't do something right, I had to fix it. And as I go through the boards, if I feel that there's a good spot for a cameo here, that's when I put it in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of organic to whatever the show is about. But it was like I had to make decisions like this to make it work.
Well, I have to say something that I really appreciate about all of the cameos you snuck in is, of course, I was young at the time, and we didn't have things like Marvel Unlimited where I could just read all of the X-Men comics that I wanted. So it's been a lot of fun as an adult with so much more knowledge to go back and watch these episodes and be like, oh, I know who that is now. Like, oh, I can't believe he worked that in. Like that, like bravo to you. Like that was
Doctor
very well
Strange
done.
at Jean and Scott's wedding, Mary Jane at the ski lodge. It's
Yes.
Clea, like, oh my goodness. And it's stuff we missed, and it's there. And thank you for those Easter eggs. It's such a joy now to rewatch the animated series with those Easter eggs.
For sure.
No, I deliberately, what my rule that I gave myself was, the cameos are for the fans, for you guys.
Yeah.
But I needed to put the cameos into the show so that a person who had no knowledge of Marvel at all, if they saw it, it would be like a table or chair or something. They wouldn't notice it. It wouldn't interfere with the original story.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan, you spot it. It's very exciting to see that.
It is.
And it was, I put all those in. I put those cameos in always for the fans, for you guys.
Oh, well, thank you.
It means a lot.
It means a lot, and it definitely planted those little things like that, planted a seed that this is a much larger universe. It made us the very crazy, neurotic fanboys that we are today. And I'm prefacing that for my next question, because I have the most neurotic fan question ever, and I'm so sorry to even have to ask this, but Miss Jean Grey had blue eyes throughout the entire series, but she had her green eyes at the end of the Dark Phoenix when she tells Scott that he has to do it. I'm curious, was that purposely done from a production direction standpoint, that you just highlighted those green eyes?
Yes. Yes. She was a different character. She was a different character then. So I had to, that was just a little, I'm impressed that you saw that.
Oh, of course you
never
did.
picked up on that. Yeah.
Good.
One person on this planet would catch that. It's Dayspring for sure.
So you just sat down, you're like, no, in this moment she needs to have those eyes because it's her defining moment. This is where she's a different character.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why that was done. And it took I was impressed that I think recently people found, I think it was the Nightcrawler, where they found the cameos I put into it, because they had Mary Jane, they had Leah, and then Doctor Strange.
Right there in the background.
They're in the background. Yeah, if you look, they're there.
The Marvel
But
Ski Lodge.
yes, but it was, if you look at the shot, it's just camera pans over to the characters, and so regular people would just look at it like, just people standing around.
Yeah.
But fans would say they knew who those characters were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's the kind of things I would do to try and put my Easter eggs here and there.
Well, we love it. We love it. So there were a lot of characters in and out of the animated series, and some of them weren't easy to animate. I know specifically that Mr. Sinister was like legendarily hard to animate.
Yes.
Was there anyone else you struggled with from that perspective?
Let's see. Characters that had very complex costumes. I'm trying to think. There were several. There were some with the Proud Boys.
The Nasty Boys.
Nasty Boys. That's the one.
Not the real life supervillains, the Proud Boys.
Yeah. Apocalypse to a degree. No, what I tried to do, I tried to make sure the costumes matched the books as much as possible.
Yeah.
But when they got really complicated, what I would do is I wouldn't let the characters, I wouldn't try and do full animation.
Yeah.
You'd see the character and he might do a couple of gestures or maybe just a head turn, so that when the show went overseas, this is a production trick that I learned from watching anime shows. You get a great shot, you see the character delivers dialogue, but then you just have them do one piece of animation so that the animators are not animating everything like a Disney show. It was just, I tried to use their animation skills strategically on certain shots where, okay, they got to fight, so have at it.
Yeah.
But for most of the show, I tried to not over animate if I could help it. If you look over, except for the first maybe first 2 or 3 episodes, you'll see that the X-Men never walk. I always cut. Okay, let's go. Then the next thing you see is a jet exhaust, boom, and they're going somewhere. But I tried never to do walking because it's a lot of work for the animators. It eats up footage that I could use that time someplace else.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that works in your favor in a lot of instances, like you said, with skipping the walking and talking and getting right to the action, sort of gave it that more kinetic feel. Sinister was allowed to be creepy in the shadows, and I just watched this episode the other night of Apocalypse's first appearance, and you're right, he kind of is almost Shakespearean, and that he just sort of stands there and monologues his evil monologue and moves his arms a little bit. And I think in all of those situations, it really worked in your favor. Those were good decisions. It's definitely better than just making do with what you can. It was you made good out of those circumstances for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. It's and part of that comes from watching anime shows where sometimes it's very limited. I mean, you have characters talking, they don't move. They deliver lines of dialogue and the camera's panning up, pan left, pan right, that kind of trick. And at Filmation, when I was there, they were doing kind of the same thing, where you'd have repeat animation, repeat headshots, because so they could keep the budget under certain numbers to keep the work here in the States. My training from Filmation and also watching the anime, I was able to, let's see, that would have been 11 years of training, of learning, so that when I got to do the X-Men, I was able to apply all that knowledge to the show and to make the show work on the budget we had. I mean, I think like Batman, Bruce Timm's Batman, I think he had double the time.
Yeah.
He had double the budget. We didn't. we had to make do with what we had.
But that gave you all the tools to deliver really great animation, really great dramatic moments, and things that worked in your favor. So you made really informed decisions with the limited budget you had. But I do need
Yeah.
to ask though, as a sidebar, and I'm so sorry, Flank. You were at Filmation. Did you work on He-Man and She-Ra?
I worked on let's see, Tarzan, Lone Ranger. Let's see, Tarzan, Lone Ranger. There's a third one in there somewhere. Oh, Buck Right. Wait, Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I love my She-Ra and He-Man, and I do love those that you were talking about too. But I needed to ask that.
Yeah, no, the other one was Black Star and somebody else. But I did work on He-Man. But I did. Do you remember the toys that you buy?
Yeah.
The figures, and there was a comic book in the back.
Yeah.
I drew those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
I didn't know that. Dude, you're
Yeah.
like, you've made our childhood. Like, not only
That's really-
X-Men animated, but the He-Man figures.
That's
Yeah, if you
really
look-
interesting.
If you look on some of the little comic book things, it was drawn by me and inked by Bruce Timm. This is back when we were just starting. If you can hold for 1 second, I'll get one
Yeah,
of these.
sure.
Go for it.
Okay. I had these were pinned up on the wall. Just for me, but like this was the first one that I did. Let's see if I can get it up here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. What? That's an iconic cover. That's
Yeah,
an
that was
iconic image.
That's the very first one I drew.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
amazing.
Yeah,
And
you.
I didn't know that you had worked with toys. I knew that Bruce Timm did like the little shields that came with the Secret Wars.
There's a little
but this
credit
is-
box here. Let's see if it.
Let's see.
if it wants to focus out.
I don't know if it. No, I can't
No.
get it to focus.
No,
No.
technology.
But
It's okay. I'll look it up. And I'll take a screen grab of it. So wait.
Yeah. So it's like
So you
this and like this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This one.
Very cool.
Oh, I love that one. Yes.
There's more. I just took.
Yes! Look at that. Oh my god.
Rah.
Man, this is our childhood right here. I feel
So-
like I owe you a drink.
I did about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I did 10 of them.
That's so cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
and so
I had no idea.
you did those with Bruce, or Bruce inked some of them. When you guys, we know that their X-Men animated was compared to Batman animated quite a bit. Did you and
Right.
Bruce ever talk, like just have a meeting or a hangout, and you're like, so we're on these two shows that are being compared to each other, and what that was like?
We worked together at Filmation. That's how we all start. That's how I met him. We were all working on Lone Ranger, and I was doing storyboards. He was doing props and backgrounds. He was working with Russ Heath, and a lot of the directors. A lot of us started at Filmation. After that we kind of like went out into the industry, and we started other shows. I'm trying to think. There's another guy named Frank Parr
Yeah.
who started there, and he became the director of Gargoyles.
Yeah, I was gonna say Gargoyles.
He's a huge Gargoyle fan.
huge Gargoyles fan.
Another one was oh god, I'm losing their names now, but there were a lot of us who kind of like went out, and that's how we got started directing in other shows. But yeah, we all started at Filmation.
I
And,
love that.
Even though I didn't work on He-Man the TV show, at least I got a chance to work on He-Man.
Got
The
to dip a
comic book.
toe.
yeah.
So the toys were equally as incredible. So
I mean, I wouldn't know He-Man without the toys. So So jumping back to X-Men, something that we discussed with the Leewalds was the streamlining of synergy between your team and Marvel after the first season of the show. They started to sort of let you guys know about new upcoming stories and characters, but sometimes, like with the title sequence logos, designs didn't exist, and you had to come up with something. I think they referenced the External in the Gambit flashback episode,
Yes.
which is an amazing design.
Amazing.
Was there anyone or anything else that you had to design outright based on a pitch from Marvel?
Okay. Say it again, because my I froze. Say it again.
Sorry. Was there anyone or anything else you had to design outright for your show based on a pitch from Marvel?
The Externals probably for me was the only character I had to design for the show. I tried not to, because there's so many X-Men out there. I mean, mutants out there.
Yeah.
I don't need to make up new stuff, but I called Marvel, I think back then, and I asked them, well, who is this? And they said, well, it's not written yet. And they had no backstory. They had no name, just Externals. Like they told me they're working on it. I'm going, well, look, I got Friday. I have to get this in production today. And if you haven't got anything, I'm just going to run with it. And so I went and designed her based upon Gambit being in, from New Orleans. He's kind of Creole. So that's where all of that came from, the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
And,
well,
it ended up the External in the books was a male. It's like, oh, thanks for letting me know that.
Well, I was going to say it turns out what you guys did with the Externals and the concept of the Externals wound up being a lot more interesting than what the comics ever gave us. It was just sort of this long drawn out mystery that never really got solved, and you guys actually did something with it. So that was that was
Very
really
true.
nice.
Thank you.
Speaking of original designs, that reminds me, I'm going to say this a lot, but I just watched this episode the other night.
Okay.
Why were you guys not allowed to use the Brood on your show? Why did you guys have to come up with the colony instead?
That might be more of a Leewald question, but
Sure.
I think I know that they thought the original characters were too scary.
Interesting.
And so visually we had to change it because that original design didn't get through. So that's why it was modified into the version that you guys saw. But they thought it was too scary. Now, why the name changed, I'm not sure. But I know visually we had to adjust for it.
I kind of thought that it might be because they were too scary, but then when you break it down, like the scariest things about, the Brood are still there. They still have the sky whale that's their slave. There's still, and body snatching. So I'm like, I was just curious. Yeah, I might shoot them an email and clarify that, but I have you in front of me, so I thought maybe.
But yeah, speaking of,
basically in order to get around the censors, they have their point, they don't like this or they don't like that. So what you do is you're trying to address just those things, so that it'll get past them, so you can get stuff in production. You don't want to make a big war out of something like that. You just want to, not to cause a lot of waves. Just, okay, they've been pretty good with us. They let us get away with a lot of other stuff. So, just compromise and let's keep the production.
They let you kill Morph.
But speaking of killing characters, though, one of the major differences with the Dark Phoenix saga was that you guys kept Jean Grey alive at the end. And I'm curious what that decision process was like with you and the rest of the team. How did you reach the conclusion that you're going to keep the story like 99% intact, but that ending, you were going to change it? And how did you arrive at that ending?
That was out of our hands. That was the broadcast standards and practices saying you can't keep her dead too long. No. That was what was told to us. Because, you can't say people are dead, they're killed. There's a whole list of things you can't do on Saturday morning kids. And so one of the things was, her not being dead for a long time. And so that's why it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kept everything as close to the books as we could, but we, it would have been perfect. If we could have kept her dead for an episode and brought it back another episode, would have been great. But they wouldn't let us do that. The kids, especially after Morph, no, you got to bring it back.
Yeah, you're like, you can't keep her dead. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then my other question would be about the Age of Apocalypse, and we know that One Man's Worth inspired Age of Apocalypse, because the Leewalds and you all were talking with them, and the comic was coming out at the same time, and you have some pretty close designs with Morph, Blink. Just look at the Leewalds book with Kitty and Forge and Banshee and Havoc, and we have Morph and Blink in the background of the series.
Right.
Did you and your team design these Age of Apocalypse looks that we would eventually get in the comics, or was it a mutual effort with the X-Men editorial office that they were feeding you these designs?
They were feeding us the designs once they finalized what they were going to do. The thing is that for us to put out a show, it's 9 months to do one script from beginning to delivery. Mm-hmm. And so, when they came up with the idea of One Man's Worth, you're talking almost like a year and a half before you guys saw it.
Yeah.
But Marvel could come out with a book like in 2 months, 3 months, it's out there. So we were able to pull from what they designed and put it into the show.
I gotcha. So it's the way the timeline worked out, and that's kind of what we theorized. But I never, until you explained it right now, I never really understood it. What about that final season? You didn't return for the final season, right?
Nope. That was my assistant director, Frank Squillace. He took over directing after I left the series. I got recruited to do the second season of Fantastic Four because they didn't like the first season. So that's how I got pulled into it. And I told them that if I want to do the second season of FF, I want to do the classic stories.
Yeah.
I want to go back and pull in Sinister Sentry and the Inhumans, Dr. Doom stealing Surfer's powers, those classic stories from way back when. And so when I told them I want to do those and I don't want any top-down interference, when they agreed to that, that's when I switched from X-Men to the Fantastic Four. And,
well, we certainly missed you.
They gave my friend Frank, a lot of, I don't know, I'll just say crap.
No,
for your broadcast, but
yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah, because he found out quickly that. Yeah, but they quickly told him, you can't do that. You can't do what Larry did. But it was after I left that they did that to him. But while I was there, they never said anything.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, I actually I bought some of the original animation cells from the Van Eaton Gallery, who actually sourced a lot of the material for the book.
Right.
And one that I bought was a group shot from that final season that you weren't responsible for. And it's just that you can tell, especially when you're like looking at the art like in person. Just I bought some of yours and then I bought that one, and the quality just completely drops off. And it's a shame that they didn't allow him to do what they let you do.
Yeah, they didn't. They told him you can't do cameos, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they the other thing I'm trying to remember is that they handicapped him with a lot of stuff.
Well, you ran a tight ship, and we love the seasons you worked on. Looking back, was there a story or a character that you wish you could have done but didn't get a chance to do, or for whatever reason it was off the table?
Kitty Pryde.
Well, there was two stories. One was that I would have liked to have done a story, not a story, but at least a part of a story where Cyclops and his brother Alex find out that they're brothers.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
It's amazing that you say that because
Yeah.
you know we've covered my love for Dazzler and Emma, but my number 3 is actually Havoc. I love
Yeah.
Havoc, and we didn't get enough of him.
Yeah, and we tried to, we implied it when they were fighting each other
Yeah,
that their powers don't affect each other, and you can only do that if you're siblings.
right.
So fans would know,
Mhm.
like you guys, but the regular public would have question marks right above their heads, going, what? But that was a story I wish we had done. The other one was actually do a Thunderbirds episode to actually do him in an episode. And the other character, which I got 3 of them, but it's like bring Ms. Marvel, our version of Ms. Marvel back into the show and have her confront Rogue.
I have to say, y'all's Ms. Marvel episode is so good, so good. I have shown it to so many people, so many of my friends who saw the Captain Marvel, because of course she is now Captain Marvel, who saw that movie, and I was like, okay, but wait, you need to watch this because this is her first.
That's where she was.
This is her first thing. You need to watch this.
Yeah.
And they all loved it. They all loved it.
Yeah, I had a heavy hand in that episode because I wanted to make sure her story was done right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the action sequences, like the guys would draw storyboards for me, and I'd get it back and I'd be looking at it going, this is pedestrian. I had to redraw a lot of the action sequences to make it work, like especially the one where they're at the end where they're fighting in her mind and Jean Grey's like a giant trying to talk to him. That was all me. I re-storyboarded all that. Or things like when Rogue goes through the roof of the entire mansion to get out. That was something I made up because the writer just had her fly through a window. I went,
yeah,
well, that's kind of boring. So there are things I did to try and enhance the visual on that. The writing was excellent. It was done by Robert Skier, I think. And that was a really, really good episode.
It was a great episode. It was great. I have one, since we got off on a little Ms. Marvel tangent. I have one more because she's my favorite non-X-Men
one of your
character.
favorite shows?
So we're covering all the bases here. But what do you make of her modern suit, the suit that they put her in the movie? Because I know how inappropriate her bathing suit costume is, but man, I love that look.
I figured the costume she has now is like, okay, it's for a different audience. It's not my cup of tea, but it's what I guess, it's what they want her to look like today.
Yeah.
It's not what I would have. I prefer the old one. I know the bathing suit is not a good thing right now, but I like it. It was such a great design.
Simple and nice. I love with that lightning bolt. It's perfection. It's John Byrne, I believe, designed it. It's John Byrne perfection.
No, actually, I think that would have been Cockrum.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. You're right. It was Cockrum. Oh, we'll edit that out.
Edit.
No, but that costume was so easy to animate. It's just the lightning and the bathing suit and the sash.
Yeah,
that's it. So a character like that, you can do full animation on her because there's not a lot to worry about.
Yeah.
So I have one final question about the series that I've always wondered about. So we know that Cable eventually became Jean Grey and Cyclops' son, and right. Jean reads Cable's mind and discovers this, and she sees an image of Cyclops, Cable, and then a redheaded woman. And we know Madeline Pryor is Cable's son. So my question, we've had so many people ask this, was that intentionally vague? Was it supposed to be Jean or was it supposed to be Madeline?
I drew that image, and it was deliberate, a deliberate hint at things to come. Yes, because I drew that in to the show.
Love it.
You heard that right here. That may be Madeline Pryor, her animated series debut.
Yes, I put that in on purpose, and luckily the dialogue was vague enough that they didn't answer questions, but visually you're going, "What's that?"
I love that. I love
No.
that. Shockingly, here I go again. I'm a huge Madeline Pryor fan, so that Easter egg is absolutely perfect for me.
Larry, our followers are gonna go nuts with this.
Oh.
Thank you. They are gonna go nuts with this. We have a lot of Madeline Pryor fans. You just broke the X-Men community right now.
Oh, okay. I just tried to hint at stuff and just say, okay, well, eventually, maybe in season 6 or 7 or 5, we could explore this. But it's kind of like what it is. It's like I like to put like breadcrumbs that the writers can run with later on by setting up stuff. I think there was one where they went into Gambit's memory and you see Ghost Rider.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I think eventually he did show up in one of the X-Men books with Gambit.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hint at it in the show, little breadcrumbs. And so that's one of the nice things about the show, was that Eric and I and the writers were all on the same page. And once they gave me an idea of where they were going with the show, I could drop breadcrumbs, visual breadcrumbs along the way to try and hint at where we were going in the future. Because I think also we put in that memory, we put Belladonna was in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that wasn't coming out to next year, the following season.
Oh, wow.
So that was another little breadcrumb that I dropped in there to try and set stuff up for another season.
Oh, well, we loved it. We loved those breadcrumbs. Absolutely.
As you can see, we ate them all up.
Oh yeah, we ate those breadcrumbs up.
We're
We are
asking you about them
satisfied.
like 28 years later. We're still talking about them.
So
You
like,
guys are sharp. You guys found those things. Those are things that only fans could find.
oh yeah. Oh, I mean, we have spent some time
Larry,
watching, analyzing, discussing.
You made our childhood. You don't understand. Flink and I were the kids on the playground who didn't fit in, and you created this universe for us that we felt like we fit it in, and it was a very real experience for us. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, I was that kid too, growing up. Who's that strange boy reading comic books over there?
Yeah, same.
I was the odd man out too.
Yeah, and the X-Men have always sort of been the comic for people like that. So so actually, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, you did move on from X-Men to Fantastic Four to save the Fantastic Four animated series, as it were. It did have a pretty rough start in its first season. I did just rewatch the whole thing on Disney Plus. And yeah, the second, what you said earlier about bringing in that classic FF stuff, like it's all there in that second season, and it's a much improved show. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save it. Why do you think Fantastic Four wasn't as successful as X-Men?
I think the fact that, well, you had a first season that wasn't faithful to the books.
Yeah.
And you also, they didn't have the Lee Walls and the people who were like, for the lack of a better term, you didn't have people who were like fanboys for behind the property from the beginning. The one nice thing about the X-Men is that we were all on the same page, and myself, Will, and Rick were fanboys. We grew up that same way. Conversely, Eric and Julia were not fanboys, but they were fans of heroic literature, and they knew how to write heroic adventures. And so we would tell them, the backstory about who's the brother, who's the sister, who's this, who's that. We gave them those tools, and then they were able to craft excellent stories around them, stories based on their personalities, as opposed to let's go fight this robot over here. Everything was based upon the person. I'm not saying this correctly, but you know what I'm talking about. Whereas the FF, I don't think in the first season, I don't think they had that type of creative staff that understood what they were writing.
Yeah.
It was kind of a lot more generic. Let's go fight the robot over there.
Definitely.
And that's not what the X-Men was all about. They were like, they're like a huge dysfunctional family that they've come together because the world was coming after them. And they don't go out trying to protect the world. They're trying to protect themselves.
Right.
People coming after them all the time.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the main differences between the X-Men and FF. The FF would go out and do stuff sometimes. I mean, in that first season. And I wanted the FF, when I did my version of it, to be motivated by something internal to the group, as opposed to like when they went out on vacation and then they run into the Sinister Sentry when they're trying to go out and have a vacation and they run into the Kree and stuff like that. Adventures like that. That stuff is coming at them instead of them going out patrolling the world like Superman would do and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I like I said, I just watched the series and we've been discussing cameos. So I can't remember if it was in the first season or the second season. So maybe you're totally not responsible for it. But in one episode of that series, we actually had a Donald Trump cameo. Were you responsible for that?
No, didn't even know who the hell he was back then.
Yeah. They were outside. They were attending some event and it was literally like outside Trump Tower and he was there with Ivana and I was just like, no, it took me
that had to be
out of
first
it.
season. No, I would never do anything like that. That had to be the first.
That had to be.
It had to be the first season because the first season's the first 13 episodes. And then I'm doing the second 13 from episode 14 to 26.
Yeah.
But no,
I didn't think so, but I saw it and I have you here and I had to ask.
And look, I have a question too that you may have no clue or any hand in, but I'm a dog with a bone on this, and I've asked the Lewalds, I've asked Scott Lobdell. No one has been able to give me an answer on this. So in 1999, Fox pitched a Generation X animated show. And there is no information out there about it other than it was a pitch. Did you know anything about it?
I only knew that it was being pitched.
Okay.
But that's it. I didn't see any visuals. I had no idea what they were doing, but I knew of it, yes. But
I feel like some Fox executive at the upfronts just went rogue and was like, well, we know Generation X comes after X-Men. Let's just say we have it.
Well, and the reason why I asked was because we know, why I thought you or the Lewalds would know was because we knew originally Beyond Good and Evil was going to be the end of the animated series, and that Xavier and Jubilee would have gone on to start Generation X, or I think it was a new team that they said in the book.
Right.
So I was wondering if that would have been like a continuation, or if we would have had Banshee and Emma leading a new team.
I think more than likely would have been the first thing you said with Jubilee and Professor X, if that had come to being, but it was not. It wasn't going to happen. Part of what happens is that these are all being produced by Saban, but Saban doesn't get any of the Marvel money for toys, okay? Because that's in the contract. He gets Zippo. And so he has no, whereas he owns the Power Rangers, he gets all of that money, all the ancillary money that comes in, the costumes, the toys, all that stuff. He gets nothing from the Marvel stuff. He had no incentive of doing anything X if he didn't have a piece of it.
Yeah.
And so he had no incentive to doing Generation X, Y, whatever. He wanted to get out of the contract. And so that's also a reason why the X-Men changed the look, is that he went to another studio that was cheaper to pay. But he could get some extra money by skimming it off the top of the production.
Oh, we know all about those stories, and how even with your script writers, he cut the budget there. And I believe the response was, well, they should be happy to be working on a mega hit show. And that's like, oh man, like even some of the Power Ranger actors, and Flink would know, have come out and spoken about Saban and how notoriously stingy he is.
He's terrible. He was awful. And he did that all the time. You
Oh,
just cut budgets, you know. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. You can talk to anybody from that era, and we all have the same story.
Horror stories.
but I feel like the animated show is having a minute now. Like, and obviously because it's on Disney Plus, they
Yeah.
have new designs up for that team in the Disney Plus icons and on the Disney store. I'm curious, what do you think an X-Men animated show that you would do? Would you come back to it if you were given the opportunity? And what would it look like if you came back to it?
I've spoken on, I think, on Twitter and some other places that I'm semi-retired, but if they called me to say, hey, we want to do another season of X-Men, or we want to do a special, or anything continuing where we left off, that's the one show I would unretire and work on.
Yes,
Make it happen, Disney.
please,
Yeah.
Disney. Have you? Can I ask you? And we can cut this if you don't want to answer. But have you heard if a revival is coming for the show?
We've heard nothing, so we're kind of like the same place you are. It's like we have no information.
Well,
It's
clearly a huge hit for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, authorized new imagery with y'all's cast of characters specifically for Disney Plus. So I'm really hoping somebody realizes what they have and picks up the phone and calls you guys, because that would be something not just special for us longtime fans, but the new fans who have found it through their parents who are our age, introducing them to it.
And they love it. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, it's got a second renaissance now that Disney Plus has put it out there, and we would be more than willing to pick up where we left off and try and do at Warner Brothers. Bruce Timm and his crews were doing like little movies once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we would be really open to something like that. If they didn't want us to do a series, we could get back and at least do another adventure, and all the voice actors, except unfortunately for Norm Spencer and the guy who did Apocalypse, unfortunately, those two guys passed away, but all the other actors we've talked to, everybody's willing to come back and work on the show.
Wow.
All the original voice actors, all the original writers, myself. All I gotta do is just someone, just say,
pick up the phone, Disney. Come on.
Disney, pick up the phone.
We would love it. We would love it. And those Batman movies, those Bruce Timm Batman little movies, those are excellent. Those
They're
are excellent
great. They do
films,
so
and I know y'all
well.
would do such a great job in that format. So, sort of wrapping up here, I just want to say that I actually, I met you at San Diego Comic-Con back in 2018, where you were being honored as a special guest at the convention. And that panel was awesome. It was standing room only. And you basically sold out of all your X-Men prints on the first day because the demand for your work was just insane. Thousands of people in their 20s and 30s, some of them with kids, like I said, now fans as well. How did that make you feel? Were you aware that there was still this audience out there, or was it just a huge surprise?
It was a big surprise. It was like, me and the voice actors and everybody, we were like totally impressed by so many people coming up and liking the show, remembering the show, and getting autographs and talking to us. And it's like, no, it caught me, off guard. It's like, wow, they really remember the show. They like the show. And then, and there were like dozens of people. Hundreds.
It was hundreds. Don't sell yourself short.
You got to go back like between when the show ended until about maybe 2018, 16. We were pretty much under the radar, I thought, of people knowing or remembering the show at all. And it wasn't until when Disney Plus picked up on it, suddenly it was like on the radar, and it was their #1 show for, I think we're equal to Mandalorian, I think.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
No one is surprised by that, because you gave us such a great series, and I don't even know how to articulate to you the lessons, the inspiration that you packaged in those episodes that made us the men we are today. And the
Yeah.
way we approach problems, the way we understand what it means to be marginalized, the way we understand stories, it's all about, it's the work you did. So thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
Well, thank you. We had, like I said, the writer, I had excellent writers I was working with. So I was able to craft the best visual that really, put the best spin on what they were trying to do. But also the fact that the writers, instead of they always wanted us to write down the kids. And I'm going, no, you write up the kids.
Yeah.
They will initially pick up on the laser beams or the explosions. But when they saw it on the reruns, they'll catch more of the adult subtext as they watch it, with more knowledge and more awareness.
Yeah.
And that's what we were always trying to do. We were trying to write up so that it would be something that would last a long time. And we were writing for ourselves, part of it. We were like, we were like in our 30s. And so we're writing to that level. We don't want to write Scooby-Doo and Super Friends. No, we didn't want to do that. No.
No, y'all did a truly tremendous job. I second everything, Dayspring just said. It was for an animated series to say something like this about an animated series, it is an important work of fiction in my life, and I'm forever grateful for it.
In the opening credits, Jubilee is being chased by a mom. A teenage girl is being chased by a mob that wants to destroy her. It's, you know what I mean? That shapes your perspective growing up. I'm sorry, I can go on and on, but Larry,
we could do this all day.
I can talk to you for all night and all day. Thank you.
Yeah, and you've been so generous with your time, and as we've said repeatedly, we could really do this all day, but we're not gonna do that to you. You've answered. We could come up with a million more questions, but you've already answered the million that we already have. So we can call it a day with that. But before we do go, where can fans find you, Larry?
Okay, I'm on Instagram. I'm LarryTunes54. My website is larry-houston.com. And let me double check to make sure I said that right. Where to go? I have to double check these things. And yeah, that's correct.
All right.
And so, if someone wants to have a question, they can either Instagram it or go to the website, and it'll forward the mail to me, the inquiry and stuff. I'm working to put maybe some prints that I've drawn of the characters out there for sale. Since there's no conventions anymore, I can't sell anything.
Yeah.
So when people they can request, and I can say, okay, yeah, I got a couple of prints. If you want prints of this character, that character, yeah.
I was actually going to ask, are you ever open for commissions, or are you just strictly prints at this point?
I am. Usually it's been prints. I haven't done it. I haven't done any. I was looking at my phone here. I haven't done any commissions yet. I guess I could be open to it.
If you ever are,
a long time.
This one right here.
The last thing I did was the cover of the book. I did the front back covers. And that was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I literally had not drawn like that in years. So it was kind of fun to draw again.
Well, it's a beautiful jacket or cover, excuse me.
Well, I know that, if you ever did make yourself open to commissions, a lot of our listeners would definitely respond to that. So
I will keep
it in mind.
I'll keep an open mind for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Larry, again, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I thank you so much for your time.
So thank you for joining us, Larry. As always, I am the uncanny Dayspring.
And I am the adjectiveless Flinkman.
And we'll see you all next week.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Right. Bye.
Thank you, Larry. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. If you have any other questions, just send an email to me. I'll answer.
We'll do it. Stay safe.
Be careful with that one. Be careful with that one. Thank you, Larry, and stay safe.
Okay. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.